There was great worry at the CIA. We didn't believe Saddam Hussein had a nuclear program, and it turned out that he didn't. But we were very concerned about chemical weapons and biological weapons. Yeah. Biological weapons can be crafted, in somebody's kitchen. You just need, a little space with an electrical outlet. You can make BW. CW, we were confident that he had it. The question was he going to use it? And I remember getting what are called critic cables. There are levels of immediacy. There's routine, priority, immediate, NIACT, which means night action, means wake somebody up and have them address this. Then there's flash, which is an emergency, and then there's critic. That means they're coming over the walls. So we would get these critic cables from NSA just saying, NSA has detected a missile launch from such and such coordinates. So we knew that if the coordinates were in Western Iraq, it was going to Israel. If they were in Southern Iraq, it was going to Saudi Arabia. And we would just wait. And then 5 minutes later, here comes the missile. So we had about 5 minutes to get the Patriots ready and then to shoot them out of the sky. The thing is, if they were carrying BW or CW, shooting them out of the sky isn't going to do anything. It's just going to disperse the agents.
Yeah. I had my mask on. They called all clear. It wasn't a chemical. It was just high explosive. As you can see, it's total. The whole thing's gone.
Yeah. And, Saddam, for all of his miscalculations, he at least didn't miscalculate that by arming the missiles with biological or chemical weapons.
And everyone thought that he would. What do you think held him back?
Honestly, I think it was that he understood the power of the Allied militaries, and he had lost the support of the Soviet Union.
Do you think that, he really thought that there wouldn't be an issue with him invading Iraq at first?
Well, that's an important point. So, the American ambassador to Iraq at the time was April Glaspie. She was an absolutely wonderful ambassador, a wonderful diplomat, career diplomat. And in very, very late July 1990, she was preparing to leave Baghdad for 6 weeks to go on vacation. And her elderly mother lived with her in Baghdad. April was her caregiver. And so here we are on the brink of war, and the ambassador's ready to go on vacation. Secretary of State James Baker cabled her and said, go see Saddam and tell him that we will not take a position on Arab border disputes. That's very important because April, for many years, was blamed for the invasion. Oh, no. It was not her fault. She did exactly as Jim Baker instructed her to do. And it was because nobody thought he would take the entire country. They thought he would just take that little strip along the border for Rumaila. So she went to see Saddam, and it was the only time she had seen Saddam other than when she presented her credentials to him when she first arrived as ambassador. Her career never recovered. She ended up having a couple of jobs at Maine State in Washington, and then she retired quietly. So she went and saw Saddam and said, just as she was instructed, the United States does not take a position on Arab border disputes. And we were all, it was a dozen of us gathered in the CIA Operations Center waiting for her to send the cable back in. It came in as what's called a no-dis. That means no dissemination. So it's just from the ambassador to the Secretary of State. But then the CIA gets a copy in the Operations Center, the White House gets a copy at the National Security Council, the Office of the Secretary of Defense gets a copy, and the Joint Chiefs of Staff get a copy. So we're all waiting. And no-dis cables are so sensitive that you're not allowed to make copies of them. You can read them and take notes, but you can't copy it. So the no-dis came in. She said, I just came out of my meeting with Saddam Hussein. This is what I said. This is what his response was. And everybody was like, oh, okay. Crisis averted. And then the next day, April and her mom went on vacation. They came back to the United States, and Saddam invades Kuwait. And in the very beginning...
he probably was like, oh, carte blanche.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
he kept using the term green light. The Americans gave me the green light. And we're like, wait, no, we didn't. We said, and it was because of a fundamental misunderstanding. We said this a lot at the beginning. Saddam did not understand the position that he was putting the United States in. That Kuwait was one of our primary oil suppliers. And you can't just, and it wasn't just that he invaded the country. He invaded the country and just started massacring everybody. You can't do that. And then you've got Thatcher.
He really was a tyrant, though.
He was a tyrant. He was a monster. Yes. His sons were worse. But, you know, even in the analysis, I told you I was in the Office of Leadership Analysis at the time, so I was Saddam's intelligence community biographer. Whenever I would brief a high-level foreign person, the head of an intelligence service, a president, a prime minister, once a king, we would always equate him to a mob boss, right? He ran the country like a mafia family would run its family. He'd kill a lot of people, but it was nothing personal against them. It was just business. His sons were psychopaths. His son Uday, the elder of the two sons, he also had 3 daughters and an illegitimate youngest son. But Uday would rape women, and then when he was done with them, he would throw them off the roof of the hotel.
I was in Iraq, and I was in one of them, like, you know, Uday and Qusay, like, fucking raped people. Them guys were evil.
You went to, their palace?
All
that kind of shit?
All of them. Them fucking guys, them palaces, like, they would pick up, like, fucking 12-year-olds off the street. They didn't give a
feed them to dogs.
Fuck. The lions. We found them fucking... So, Uday had lions. Lions were, like, on the army side, the big army side, and they were inside this fence, right? And then the lions were like just lazy as fuck, didn't care about no army guys. And then one day I seen a lady and kids walk by, and they're just behind chain link, and them fucking lions went nuts. And I knew, like,
they'd
only
been feeding them
that
ladies and kids.
Fuck yeah, they were fucking evil,
I
man.
read so many horrible stories about those guys. That they would find a woman who was getting married, and they would rape her and then feed her to their dogs.
Yeah.
I bring your sisters here. This evil guy, he's a lunatic.
Ugh.
Why would you do something like that? And he got
Just
pleasure
power.
out of that.
Power.
Mm-hmm. The second son, Qusay, was the head of the what was called the Special Security Organization. So there were several rings of security around Saddam. SSO was the innermost ring, headed by Saddam's son. Then there was the Special Republican Guard, then the Republican Guard, and then the military. And he didn't trust anybody in the military. Yeah.
Wow.
It was bad.
Have you ever seen that series that came out on Amazon? It was called Tyrant. Actually.
Yes.
That was such a good show because it reminded me, it was like a little bit of Gaddafi, a little bit of Saddam, but the boys, you know, they really showed, like, one of those reminded me of Uday so much, where I was just like, oh, that's just like straight out of his playbook, you know, the abuse of exert power onto women. It's like, that woman, I want her. Horrible.
He even raped Tariq Aziz's daughter. Tariq Aziz was the only Christian in government. He was a long time foreign minister and deputy prime minister, and he was Catholic, Chaldean Catholic, and Uday raped his daughter, and then said, "What are you going to do about it?" And the answer was nothing.
Nothing.
What could he do about
Tariq, like, he was still part of the leadership, the Ba'ath leadership, because
That's
I remember his face on one of the playing cards.
Oh yeah. It was up toward the top.
Yeah.
It was Saddam, his brother Ali
brother.
Hassan al-Majid.
That's right. Yeah.
His half-brother Barzan Takriti, Watban Takriti, Sabawi Takriti, Izzat Ibrahim Aduri, the vice president, who ended up being the only one to just die a natural death of old age because he hid out all those years. Tariq Aziz, a handful of military guys. We wrecked the place. And, you know, like Saddam Hussein or love him, or hate him rather, the fact of the matter is that he was the only Sunni bulwark against Iran. And he was the only thing keeping the Iranians from just having their way in the Gulf. And now he's gone. And now Iraq, for all intents and purposes, it's almost an Iranian client state.
Correct.